Okay, hello once again. I think now we should be back for take two, and this time I have my notes. And as I said before, it is important that we understand where this knowledge is from. And so, anyone who's just joining the stream, yes, we are a little bit late this morning because I actually forgot to put my notes down in regards to. Now, can someone just talk to me in the chat just so that we are sure that I am back? Yes. Hello, Rochelle. How are you? I saw Chris here before. I saw Judith. And I saw Truth Seeker. Are you guys hearing me? Everything's coming through? Can you just give me a thumbs up on that? Because I did just... Yeah, hi. Hi, Eileen. Can everyone hear me? I'm wondering if you guys can hear me because I'm not getting any feedback because I did just put my... Yeah, you can. Okay, great. All right, because, yeah. Oh, great. Thank you, Judith. Okay, I didn't want to do another 5 minutes of talking to myself and nobody hearing me because I did just have to unplug my mic. Right, so everybody just joining us. Yes, I am feeling good today, actually, Rochelle. Thank you for that. Now, so this is the second take of our Decoding the Gospel of Thomas because I didn't print the notes out before. And as I was saying, I think it's very important that we understand what happened to the true Christians who tried to protect the knowledge so that we have the ability now to look at these texts and read these texts and study them and understand them and enlighten ourselves with this knowledge that they literally died protecting. So before we go into the Gospel of Thomas, I thought it was important we just did a little bit of background into who the Gnostics were, the Nag Hammadi Gospels, how they were discovered, and where they were discovered, and any important significance in that as well. And so before we start, I'll just go quickly over the group guidelines. Now, we don't really have many guidelines. The guidelines really just are, please don't chatter in the chat. You know, if you've got something that you want to ask in regards to the information that was relayed during the stream, try and keep it to the last half hour so that I can just go back and look at any questions if there are any. No opinions. If you do have something to share, then we'd like it to be backed up with some ancient text. So we don't want, oh, I heard this or this, you know, making a statement and there is nothing to back a statement up, because when we're talking about the Gnostics, there is a lot of disinformation and a lot of misinformation, and people who write about the Gnostics actually don't study the texts. I've noticed that when I go and actually do some research into, you know, cathars.org, cathars.com, whatever, it's just information taken from historic records. These people haven't actually gone and studied the actual Gospels or the actual texts. They've just studied the historic records, which were all falsified. I mean, we're dealing with the most evil group of people on earth who are hiding behind godly robes and using religion as a false facade to hide themselves from the masses. And so of course they are absolutely intent on creating disinformation around the Cathars. I mean, I've heard that the Gnostics are you know, polytheists, that they didn't eat meat, that they did not believe in fighting and violence, and this is just absolutely untrue and can be easily dispelled when you actually read the texts, okay? Because Jesus returns with a sword and to bring war. Okay, does that sound like someone who just walks around nursing baby lambs? okay, and is everyone's bestie, all right, is the hippie freak that they all try and make out he is. And as we will see when we start decoding the Gospel of Thomas, there is also information about diet, okay, and nowhere does it say that you aren't to eat meat. So we'll dispel some of those myths as well. So let's get started, shall we? So let's start with the discovery of the Gospels, because that's quite important too. Now, this is important because 1700 years ago, and I think if it's to be exact, it's 1697 years ago. Let's just round it up to 1700 years ago, because hey, we don't even really know about dates anymore, because as I've said, those who are in charge of our reality now that they have constructed for us have rewritten all the records and all of our history. Okay, so we don't really know the truth about our history. I mean, there was literally 200 years where we lost everything. So we really don't have anything to go on other than what the Catholic Church have allowed to be relayed to us as our histories, because when you go and look at all of the universities, and I've said this many times, but I'll say this for the benefit of those who are just joining the stream today, and so I do apologize if I repeat myself, guys, because I do this for the people that are just joining our streams and are just discovering this knowledge. So please excuse that sometimes I do tend to repeat myself, but I think it's good in a way that it solidifies it anyway, you know, that it just really kind of hammers it even more when we're giving out this knowledge. But so all of the universities were founded on religion, and any religions that exist today in their current form and that have existed since the 1700 years ago, are all part of the Catholic Church, okay, because they've literally infiltrated every single one of the religious organisations around the world. They've all been infiltrated by the Catholic Church and are really just fronts for the Catholic Church to give people the impression that they've actually got a different religion. But he does that. The Jesuit even shows us this anyway, because he meets with the Muslim leaders, he meets with the leaders, the rabbis, he meets with the fake Buddhist leader, the Dalai Lama. You know, there is plenty of photographic evidence of the head Antichrist meeting with all of these religious leaders, and they do it they mock us. It's a way that they mock us. So all of the Christian sects, without a doubt, okay, are also controlled by the Catholic Church from behind the scenes, okay? They just give these very gullible and mindless modern Christians the delusion that they are part of something special and they are not like those other Christians over there, you know, they are different. But really they are all following Catholic canon, okay? They all interpret the Bible the same way that the Catholics do, through the Catholic canon, and this was all basically created 1700 years ago by the Council of Nicaea, which was convened by the Emperor Constantine with about 400 Christian church leaders, including Catholics. And so really what it was the emperor and the Catholics, the Catholic Church, coming together to create a narrative. And that narrative was to remove God the Father as the Godhead and replace God the Father with Jesus, the Son. And so from that time on, everyone had to pray to Jesus, everyone had to praise and worship Jesus, and God the Father was put in the background. And this is where we are today with modern Christians all treating Jesus like he's some type of pop star. He's their poster boy. He's their bestie. They all praise and they all worship him. But you will not find one verse in the Bible where Jesus ever asks to be praised or worship. In fact, Jesus says, "Why do you call me good when only God alone is good?" Jesus also literally has it out with the Jews when they accuse him of blasphemy, saying that he is equal to the Father, and Jesus turns around and tells them, "I am the Son." So I don't get how modern Christians can be so brainwashed into replacing God the Father with the Son when Jesus clearly tells them that he is not the Father, that he is the Son. He makes it clear to them, "I am not equal to the Father. You have one Father. He is in heaven. I am a man. I am the mediator between God the Father and mankind." He says this. It's written in the Bible, but they refuse to believe it because they are lazy mentally, they are lazy spiritually, and they are weak. And they are so fearful that if they look outside their Bible or they don't listen to their clergy, that they will go to hell. And so because they've shown that they have no real courage, they will not be rewarded. Okay, and so this is where it all started. Back in, back 1700 years ago with the Council of Nicaea, this is when the Gospels were voted on. Okay, so yeah, there was no divine revelation involved here or mystical Holy Spirit helping them to decide what Gospels shall we put into the Bible, what holy texts should we include. Please, God, work the Holy Spirit through us so we can, there were no apostles present during this time. No, it was merely voted on. And by saying merely voted on, I mean it was the Catholic bishops and Emperor Constantine who decided on what books went into the Bible, and the other church leaders, the Christian church leaders at the time, had to agree. There were some that didn't agree, that refused to put Jesus as the Godhead, but they were outnumbered in the end. And so of course you know what happens to people that go against the Catholic Church and the Antichrists. It doesn't work out very well for them, as we will see when we look to what happened with the Cathars. So this is what happened. Now, any text that wasn't included into the canon, the Catholic canon, or the Nicene Creed, but which later became, which is basically the canon, right, that all Christians interpret their scriptures through. Now, this is even lower level clergy, okay? So it doesn't matter if the lower level clergy at your church today want to actually change up the interpretations a little bit because they've been doing their own studies and they've realized there's some discrepancies there with the Catholic canon. Oh, no. They have to absolutely follow the narrative set down to them, the canon set down to them from their higher level clergy. Okay, so everyone is taking their interpretation from the Catholic Church. And I know that a lot of Christians protest this. And, when I say Christians, I say modern Christians, because they're not Christians. The only true Christians are the Gnostics, because they are the only ones who actually follow the teachings of Christ and the Christed, because there is more than one Christ. Jesus and the Christed. This is what the disciples and the apostles are all representing. And we see that even in the Bible, it mentions gods. Okay, it doesn't just mention God. Many times it mentions gods, and that is because it's gods with a little g. All right, so all of the divine souls, there are 288 divine souls. They are known also as the gods. So these other cultures were not polytheists, okay, as is misunderstood when we look to their belief systems. It's just that we are not very smart in these times when it comes to spiritual matters. As I've said, we've been taken down a false path by the Catholic Church, who have now consolidated their power throughout all of the different sects and all of the different agencies and areas of our modern society, the media, the education system, as I just said, religion, science, financial, it's all them. Okay, we are completely at their mercy now. So we need to understand the truth by looking at the real teachings of Christ. And that is why the Gnostics are the real Christians, because they have not allowed themselves to be taken down the false path, and they put up a hell of a fight around 600 years ago trying to protect the original teachings of the Christed. So it's important to understand the Council of Nicaea when we look at the Gnostic texts and the Nag Hammadi Gospels, because they literally, apparently, destroyed any of the Gospels that didn't go into the Bible back during the Council of Nicaea. This is apparently what happened. They decided on what books that they were going to put in there. They voted on them. As I said, there was no mystical, choosing of these books. It was just they decided through voting. As I've said, that really what that relates to in truth is just the Catholic Church and under the protection of the emperor decided what books would go into the Bible, decided on which of the scriptures that they could twist into their own preferred teachings, replacing God the Father with Jesus the Son, and then every other gospel was burned and destroyed. But we know that's not true. We know that in truth, all of those gospels and those books still exist in the Vatican Library. But what they have done now is say that any other text that isn't in the Bible that has been decided on and agreed upon by the Catholic Church is a heresy. Okay, and so if we actually look at what they will call the Gospels of the Nag Hammadi Gospels, they are known as an apocrypha text or apocryphal text, meaning that they just do not accept them as a holy text, even though once upon a time they were revered and they were looked upon. If you go and have a look at the definition of the of apocrypha with the Encyclopedia Britannica, it's very interesting that they say that once upon a time apocryphal texts were revered, and then eventually they were neglected and not tolerated and called a heresy. And that's why it's important that we understand that the discovery of the Nag Hammadi Gospels was a real spanner in the works for the Catholic Church, because they had thought that they had destroyed all the other texts so that they could shore up their own narrative. They went around the world pillaging and destroying. I mean, this is what the Crusades were all about. This is what it was really about, was to make sure that there was nothing that could threaten the power of the Catholic Church over the psyche and the beliefs of humanity. So they had to destroy all of the other information and all of the other knowledge, and they had to, savagely murder and slaughter anybody who refused to accept their interpretation of the Bible and of the scriptures. So the Bible as we have it today, we don't know if it's the same books that they decided on 1700 years ago. Okay, we have no idea about that because they are no longer in existence. We no longer have any material, physical copies of the Gospels. So we just have to believe that they are the books that they decided on that went into the Bible back then. So they could have made changes since then, and we absolutely know that they've made changes to the text and corrupted them where they could get away with it. And that's not to say that the entire Bible is a fallacy and has been corrupted, because there are plenty of, there's plenty of evidence to say that a lot of the scriptures are still accurate, but they have made some changes, and it helps them to interpret the scriptures in the way that they want, in the corrupted way they want. Now, the reason they couldn't completely change the Bible up is because in case there were other scriptures that surfaced, because they knew that there were people who were hiding away the Gospels and the ancient texts because the Catholic Church were coming to take them or, destroy them, which really they were just coming to take them and then keep them in the Vatican Library, because then they knew that they had them there for their own scholars to go and study, to give them more knowledge and more information, because they need to know when the cycle ends as well, and they need the signs so that they can determine in time their own script that they're writing now in these modern times, because they know the timing of things a lot better than we do, due to all the knowledge that they've taken and stolen. So that's why it was such a spanner in the works with the Nag Hammadi Gospels that were discovered in Nag Hammadi in Egypt. And even though they've tried to say that they are false, they can't. And so they've tried to discredit them, but there are a lot of scholars who will not accept that they are frauds, because not everyone is under the influence of the Catholic Church. They can only really infiltrate in a certain way at the upper levels, but that doesn't mean that everyone underneath those upper levels is fully in line. It's normally the closer you get to power, the more you come under the control of the Catholic Church. So there are lots of academics that, even though they are in a false system, they can still identify when something is not true, And so when you study the Nag Hammadi Gospels, you can actually see when especially the Gospel of Thomas. I suggest that everybody goes and looks at the book of Matthew, because you will see that, there are so many similarities between the Gospel of Thomas and the book of Matthew. And so this is why they can't discredit them completely. So let's have a little bit of a look at what happened and when the Nag Hammadi Gospels were unearthed. So they were found in Nag Hammadi, which is in Egypt. And Nag Hammadi, by the way, when you do the numerology on the name of the town Nag Hammadi, well, it's actually a region, and it's located in the what they call the old the old Egypt. Like, I can't think of the name now, but it's the Valley of the Kings. It's right near the Valley of the Kings, and it's in the Upper Nile, and it's there's a lot of actual important monuments around the area of Nag Hammadi as well. So it was discovered in 1945 by a group of Egyptians digging for fertilizer, and they say that it's one of the most important manuscript discoveries of the 20th century for the study of religion into the late Mediterranean world, particularly formative Christianity and Judaism. There were 46 different unique texts, and they have provided scholars with a wealth of new data for understanding the development of early Christian traditions like Gnosticism. Now, they have thrown in a few other traditions like Valentinism or something like that. I went and looked it up. I didn't include it because it's absolute rubbish. It's got nothing to do with Gnosticism. So again, poisoning the well, what they always do. And they were considered, the Gnostics were considered to be heretical in later times of Christianity. So this is early Christianity. I mean, Christianity originated in ancient Egypt, and the Gnostics were the true Christians, and anybody studying the Gnostic texts now today are Gnostic Christians, are true Christians. And I often say, when people ask me, well, what are you, Dee? And I would often go between calling myself a Hermeticist or a Gnostic. a Gnostic Christian, because, you know, I do really feel a strong alignment to the Gnostic teachings. I mean, I like all of the teachings in the holy texts of all of the different religions. They all have their own little essence that is special and different. And, you know, I respect all of them. And, but there is, you know, even the Kabbalah, you know, I feel there's a little bit more of a, it's just easier for me to grasp the symbols and the knowledge in these texts than I do the other texts. So anybody who is studying the Gospels, the Gnostic Gospels correctly, and I'm not saying interpreting them in the way that modern gurus are telling you. I mean, I'm telling you to go and study them for yourself and understand them for yourself. If you are doing that, you are a true Christian, okay? And so these modern Christians, these frauds, are really just giving Christianity a bad name, and they will not be rewarded for that, as much as they think that their bestie, Jesus, is coming back to hang out with them and sit around, and they're all going to sing Kumbaya together around the campfire. And, you know, that's not happening. There's going to be lots of slaying, lots of... It's not going to be a pretty time or a nice time for anybody who has worked to serve the Antichrists in power, whether that is through ignorance or not. Because remember that saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Modern Christians need to understand what that means, because Jesus is returning with a sword. And I often say, if you look at the symbol of Kalki from the Hindu texts, that's pretty much summing up the divine man and his brothers, because there's more than one divine man. Jesus is just the Godhead of the divine souls. He is their leader because he is the firstborn. But they're all coming back to clean up the mess that these workers of lawlessness have allowed to take place in their garden while they've been absent. Because, as I've said before, I mean, they've literally just left and gone for a little bit, and now they're coming back. They're coming back to the garden that we're supposed to be looking after, and we've made a real mess of things, and that's not going to be rewarded. So 5 of these were known from previous discoveries before the Nag Hammadi library was unearthed, but the 41 were first-time discoveries. This is just about the texts. Unfortunately, 10 of those 41 texts are badly damaged. And it's interesting when you have a look at some of where these texts are damaged. They're right around when they're just about to give you some really good information, and suddenly it's too damaged to understand. So, yeah. You know, when you know that the Catholic Church are in full control of all of the, you know, education institutes and the museums, you know that that's where these texts have turned up, and now they are existing in these places. So it's not like we could go and actually look at them for ourselves in their purest form as they were discovered. It goes on to say that the genres of the literature represented in the Nag Hammadi library are predominantly the same as those found in the New Testament, the Gospels, personal letters, Apocalypses, Revelation, and Acts. Now, this is what's interesting, guys. There were even Hermetic writings found with the Nag Hammadi Gospels, and more importantly, Plato's Republic was found with the Gospels as well. Okay, so there was some excerpts from Plato's Republic. So whoever buried these Gospels did that so that they knew that they could be dated accurately. Okay, so that they knew that the Antichrist couldn't say, oh, well, these are just modern knockoffs, because that's one thing that they can't do. They have been dated. Now, they've said that they have dated them to be around 1600, 1700 years old, but Plato's writings are said to be 2400 years old. Okay, So I would suggest that they could even be older than 1700 years old. Now let's remember too that carbon dating isn't very accurate. Okay, as much as they want to state that carbon dating and radiometric dating is, just so accurate in giving, it's not. Okay, it's not. Carbon dating is not accurate because the decay rates of carbon are not constant. They thought they were. But there are now studies done that carbon, the decay of the decay of carbon is not constant as they thought. So there are different things that could actually really mess up the dating of certain objects. Environmental changes. Cosmic ray bombardment, solar maximum, anytime we have anything where there's a lot of, external and environmental fluxes and differences can upset their dating mechanism. So I would say they're easily probably 2,500 years old. So definitely they are authentic. So for any modern Christian to call them heresy is just their stupidity, their height of stupidity and arrogance and ignorance, because these are the true texts of Christ. And anybody who wants to follow the teachings of Christ, any of these modern Christians, should be turning their back on the false teachings that were given to them by the Antichrists and start studying these Gospels. Now, they're saying that the Nag Hammadi texts were all originally written in Greek, but versions in the Nag Hammadi library are translations into Coptic, a form of ancient Egyptian language written in a variant of the Greek alphabet rather than the more traditional hieroglyphs. So we know that ancient Greece and ancient Egypt were literally bonded at the hip. Okay, you can literally see them as the one area that shared the same knowledge. Okay, there was no real, it's not like the ancient Greeks are over there and they believe that, and the ancient Egyptians, no, they were fused. They were absolutely fused. Okay, and any fragmentation now is only an illusion of fragmentation. Okay, they were, and look, as I've said before, thousands and thousands of years ago, before the Antichrists came and fragmented everything fully, everybody believed the same truths, because there is only one truth. It all comes from the one source. Okay, divine revelation all comes from the Creator, from the divine mind, and is then relayed uniquely dependent on the culture, because we are all different. We all have these little unique differences due to our cultural differences, and so each culture relayed that divine information and that divine knowledge in their own essence, their own lens, through their own lens. Okay, it doesn't mean that it's not the same truth. It just means that it's expressed differently, because when you go beneath the surface of the parables, the stories, the symbolism and the myths, it's all the same story. You see the reoccurring theme, and that is why I say that I'm a cross-culture theologian, a cross-culture researcher of mythology, a cross-culture researcher of symbolism. And that is why when you look to most of these, these researchers, even these modern researchers, these gurus and these New Age researchers, even researchers into Judaism, Kabbalah, modern Christianity, Gnosticism, whatever it is, how many of them actually go cross-culture? Because I'm telling you, pretty much zero. They all just focus themselves on one area, and that's where they stay. And then they try and interpret everything through that narrow view that they have of that one area. Unless you go and look at all of the different sciences, the sacred sciences, all of the different esoteric tools, all of the different theologies and mythologies and legends and symbolism, cross-culture, you're going to remain blind. And this is why I have a lot of respect for Manly P. Hall, because he was a researcher that went cross-culture. And that is what he did to collate a lot of his knowledge. He went cross-culture. You know, the Theosophists also did that to a certain degree as well. And, you know, I don't have a full alignment with Theosophy, but there are some truths in Theosophy. I think Theosophy was off to a great start, but I think because of the modern age that they were infiltrated and the well was poisoned, especially by people like Aleister Crowley. But anyway, let's not digress into that area. So, the ancient sites in the vicinity of Nag Hammadi include the tombs of the Old Kingdom. That was what I was trying to say. The Old Kings, the Old Egypt, the Old Kingdom, it's known as. The town of Hu is situated in Nag Hammadi, and Hu is spelt H-U for anybody that wants to go and do some research into the town of Hu. There's also some other ways of spelling it, but if you actually put Hu, H-U, Egypt, you'll get all of the other spellings as well. I've just gone with H-U. It is situated in Nag Hammadi and was known as the lesser city of Zeus, while Thebes was called the greater city of Zeus. Now, we know that Zeus relates to the Father, God the Creator. And just a disclaimer for those who are joining this live stream for the first time, I refer to God in the male form. I call God He. It's just a personal preference, though God is androgynous. Okay, so you don't have to call God He. You don't have to get offended if someone calls God He. I'm not being sexist. I'm not being, any of those things that people in these days like to accuse others of. When you dare, say that, the Creator is a male. It's just that's my preference. If you want to see God in the female form and see God that way, that is perfectly okay, because the Creator is androgynous, both male and female, and it doesn't matter if you want to see God as a male, God as a female. It really doesn't matter, just as long as you understand there is one prime Creator, and He created you, He created me, He created everything. Everything is of God. We are existing in God's creation, His mental universe, His mental creation. We are all part of that. So it's interesting that we see another connection. As I just said, ancient Egypt and ancient Greece were fused. They were joined at the hip. Literally, we see this with the meaning of these names of these towns being, the greater city of Zeus and the lesser city of Zeus. So where the Nag Hammadi Gospels were found were known as the lesser city of Zeus. Who was also associated, now this is really interested with those who follow Kabbalah, and especially the students that understand the Bat Kol, because who was associated with the goddess Bat, literally spelt like bat, B-A-T, and the goddess Hathor. They are essentially symbolizing the divine female, the Binah. Okay, so we know in Kabbalah there is the divine female intellect and the divine male intellect. The divine female intellect is Binah. The divine male intellect is Chokmah. And so the Binah is also known as the Bat Kol. And she is normally the voice of the wisdom. Okay, this is why the Catholic Church moved to exterminate the female and extinguish the female influence in their church, even though in the Gospels, in the Nag Hammadi Gospels, in the Gospel of Philip, it is said that Mary Magdalene was Jesus's favorite disciple, favorite apostle, favorite student, and that they were very affectionate with each other, often showing affection all the time to each other, and he was often showing affection to her. So it is also known in Gnosticism it is said in Gnosticism that Mary Magdalene and Jesus were husband and wife. So that is true in the sense that they are relating, that they are the twin souls of Chokmah and Binah. They are symbolizing the twin souls, and Chokmah and Binah. And so the bat kol is the voice. That's what it literally translates to, voice of the daughter in Hebrew. So that I found very interesting. When where the Nag Hammadi Gospels was found, is associated with the goddess Bat and the goddess Hathor. And some researchers into ancient Egypt say that Hathor and Bat, the goddess Hathor and the goddess Bat, are separate, and some are saying that the goddess Bat and the goddess Hathor are the same goddess. I am saying that the goddess Bat and the goddess Hathor are just symbolizing different aspects of the divine female. So literally they are the same goddess, but they are just symbolizing different aspects of her, because there's a creation aspect of the divine goddess, there's a intellect aspect of the divine goddess. You know, there's all these other aspects and characteristics of the divine, and what the ancients did was fragment them and personify them. Okay, and this is what we see here. So I found that was very interesting. Now, the other thing is that the sistrum is also connected to the goddess Bat and the area surrounding Nag Hammadi. And also the Gospel of Mary Magdalene was among the texts found at the Nag Hammadi as well. So the sistrum, and most people don't really understand what the sistrum is, because they look at the sistrum and they're like, oh, that's supposed to be a musical instrument, but it's not very musical. So the sistrum is... So the way that the divine soul could manipulate matter was through vibration, and we learn this through the 7 Hermetic principles, and I've gone over that in my last live stream if you want to go and look at that. They do that through vibration. Well, as they were coming down this cycle of the great year, so they have full access to all of their gifts and attributes and their, you know, powers and their skills in the golden age. They have some access to it in the silver age as well. I mean, they've still got access to their abilities, but they're slowly losing that because their portion, their divine portion within them, is fading as the Christ light removes itself, like, you know, the rhythm of the tide and the ether, and the Christ light moves in and out of our cycle. In the golden age, the tide of ether and the Christ consciousness and God's influence on the material plane is very strong. We, you know, all benefit from that. The divine have their abilities and their gifts, and we understand our place in everything, and we understand that, you know, there is a creator, because his influence, his presence is very manifest. As we move down the great year cycle, we're now in the Iron Age, we're moving back into the Golden Age, but we're not quite there yet. There's going to be a lot of very negative events before that happens. But as we move from the Silver Age into the Bronze Age, and the divine are losing access to their gifts, they need amplifiers. And so the sistrum is an amplifier. It amplified the vibration of the vocal vibration of the divine soul, and particularly it looks like it was associated with the divine female more than the divine male. Now, that could just be the ones that are found. They may not be the actual tools that were used by the divine at the time. They could just be replicas and symbolic, but that's what they actually represent. So people are always confused about the sistrum. They don't really understand what it is. That's what it is. And so the sistrum is connected to the 5th chakra, and that's the throat chakra called the Vishuddha. And as I've said to you guys, the 5th chakra is probably one of the most important chakras that we have in our chakra system. And the 5th chakra, along with the heart chakra and the Ajna chakra, which is the 3rd eye chakra, are the most important chakras, because they're our higher self chakras. And we cannot just allow ourselves to think our way into enlightenment. We have to express that. We have to express it out through the 5th chakra. So we have to express that through action, through words that we say, because that is going to determine whether we attain immortality or not. It is our actions and our words that will be determining whether we move into the golden age with the divine and whether we attain immortality with the divine as well. Okay, so that doesn't mean turning up to a church and just repeating what the clergy tell you to. That doesn't mean praising and worshiping Jesus, because these people are in for a big shock, because Jesus didn't care about being praised or worshipped. He didn't want that. He literally said he didn't want it. He just wants you to go out and do what he did. Go out and help people. Go out and make things better in a time where there's a lot of evil. Go out and protect children. You know, go out and make a difference as much as you can. That's what the fifth chakra is, and that's what is going to determine whether you will make it through into the next great year with the divine. All right, so let's go into now the last true Christians, which were the Gnostics, okay? So from 1208 to 1244, with the fall of the Chateau de Monsieur, did you like my French there? Chateau de Monsieur, I probably said that wrong, but it sounded good. The Catholic Church waged war against this group of Gnostic Christians, though Gnostics were still being burned alive into the 14th century. So into the 14th century, the Gnostics were still being burned alive. Anybody that didn't agree with the Catholic narrative, the Catholic interpretations of the scriptures, were being burned alive at the stake. Okay? And so anybody still following these people, I mean, I can't believe that there are still actually people who openly admit that they're Catholic. I mean, how does that happen? How can you be so willfully ignorant that you would openly admit that you were part of an organization that was burning people alive, 7 centuries ago? And later. They were burning people alive into the 1700s. Okay, just because, as I've said, they can change things up as much as they want, because who was going to actually go up against the Catholic Church back in those times? Nobody, because they had full power. Okay, they had pretty much full power from the 1700s, well, at least in that part of Europe, Italy and the surrounding areas, and then they just infiltrated their way out, from there. So the Roman Catholic Church invented the Great Inquisition to stamp out the Cathars, because they were the greatest threat to the false teachings being pushed by the Roman Catholic Church. The Cathars refused to accept the Catholic canon and worshipped Jesus as God the Father, and removed the importance of the female in the teaching of spiritual knowledge. Under the orders of King Henry III, King Henry III, and now we've got who? We've got false King Charles, who's about to be crowned as the false Messiah. Same bloodlines, same power being handed down, just like the popes. Same power's been handed down, shoring up their power over humanity, hiding just behind their robes, pretending that the Royal Church is just a figurehead. Well, they don't really mean anything. They're just there for tourism. They're just a figurehead. They're not that important. Really? Well, I think humanity are about to find out just how important to everything these evil bloodlines actually are. And we don't have long to find out, because they're going to crown their false Messiah next Saturday. And I'm going to do another live stream about that, because there's some other information that has come out about that. I'm not going to taint this live stream with that information, but yes, stick around. Sometime this week before Saturday, I will be putting out more information. So under the orders of King Henry III and Pope Innocent III, see how they mock us? See how they mock Pope Innocent? I mean, really? I can't even say my true thoughts and feelings about these people right now, because we live in a time of censorship. We live in a time of burning of the books, but it's not in the literal sense anymore. It's more that we are shut down and extinguished by the censorship of Google. And let's remember, Google, who now have taken over YouTube, had to remind themselves not to be evil. I mean, that was literally their catchphrase, don't be evil. I mean, telling us to our faces. They had to remind themselves not to be evil, because they are evil. So under the orders of King Henry III and Pope Innocent III, Simon de Montfort led the royal army to the south of France to slaughter the Gnostic Cathars. It is said that when Montfort asked, "How will I tell the Gnostics apart from the Catholics?" Pope Innocent replied, "Kill them all and let God sort them out." Wow, I can really imagine that is something that Jesus would say and do. All of you modern Christians, don't you think that that's something that Jesus would be proud of? Hey, I think that when Jesus is returned, that Jesus is just going to shake the hand of the Pope, of the Jesuit Pope, the Jezo, sitting in the throne right now, and say, thank you so much for being such a Christ-like representative while I was gone. You really did such a great job, especially the way you slaughtered nearly 1 million Christians because they didn't want to accept your teachings. Yeah, I'm just, so proud of you and everybody else that the millions of people that follow you, the Catholic Church, and all of the other modern Christians, the billions who call themselves Christians. And, I just thank you for being so Christ-like and supporting such a Christ-like organisation while I was away. Does anybody really think that that is how it's going to play out? Because, unfortunately, the Gnostic Christians are in the few, but the modern Christians actually think that that's how it's going to happen. That they're just going to be rewarded for following the Antichrists. So they call themselves the Cathars, taking their name from the Greek word for pure, relating to the pure teachings of Christ. Using the murder of a papal legate, the King of France launched the so-called crusade against the Cathars, blaming them for the murder, even though there is no evidence in any historical record that the papal legate was killed by a Cathar, and no one was ever charged or tried for his murder. So the King of France, be interesting to go and look at his bloodlines and where they ended up in these modern times. Wouldn't be surprised if... who have we got? Macron and Le Pen. She's trying to make her move now. And she's got a connection to the Jesuits. Her father has. And Macron has a connection to the Jesuits. And he just, when you see him suck up to the Pope, that Jesuit, you can see, that there is definitely a connection there. So they just used a lie. They made up this lie that one of the Cathars killed one of these papal legates, and so that is what gave the King of France the justification to go and slaughter them and their children and their families. The Catholic Church continued to wage war of terror against the indigenous population of the Languedoc. Well, that's French, and I've said that wrong. I'm sorry. And their rulers, and it is estimated 500,000 Languedoc men, women, and children were massacred. Some estimates say 1 million, but most records around this time have been removed or corrupted. So we know there was definitely more than 500,000. They slaughtered them all. They killed them all. They didn't want any threat to their power, any threat to the narrative. The Crusaders killed indiscriminately as well, and slaughtering both Catholics and Gnostics. So there you go, Catholics. Your own Pope was slaughtering, Catholics as well as Gnostics, because he was just going to let God sort them out. And yet you people still follow these antichrists. How disgusting. It really is. You know, you people are the worst. Okay, so what are the differences between Cathar Christians? What do they believe that modern Christians today don't believe? Where are the differences here? So let's have a look, shall we? So the Cathars did not believe that Jesus literally died on the cross, because guess what? Jesus didn't literally die on the cross. Okay, it's a symbol. It's representing that Jesus and the Christed carry the cross of humanity, because they will always have to sacrifice themselves in the lower ages for the mortals, okay, to try and save this knowledge and, you know, keep the truth for the sake of the mortals. And so it is part of the process that they will actually be defeated, okay, and they will be defeated because of the sin of the mortals meaning merely that the mortal man moves out of alignment with divine law and literally just takes full power, because there's only ever going to be 288 divine souls, and as we move down the great year, the mortals populate and populate and populate. And so they, you know, cannot consolidate or cannot keep their power, because the mortal man becomes just too many and outnumbers them. And if you actually look at the mythology of the samurai, and I do have a video regarding the mythology of the samurai, you can see that this is also in their mythology as well, in their legends, in how they just cannot continue to stay in power. I mean, all of these huge forts that you see, these big castles that were built on the top of mountains, and we look at them and we go, how the hell did they build that on that mountain back in those times? And you see them throughout Europe, you know, Germany, you know, and they're just these huge fortified castles, and that was the divine trying to hold on to power for as long as they can. But eventually they just get overtaken by mortals, until we're in these times now when mortal man has full power, the devil is in full control, because the divine man is not known anymore. He is not illuminated at all in any way. He looks just like every other mortal human until the Christ-light returns and the divine humans are once again illuminated, and then we will actually understand who the divine are amongst humanity. Until that time, we are just all lost and hopeless and drunk, as they call it, because we're just ignorant. We have no clue. We worship materialism. Everything's about money. Everything's about profit and accumulating materialism, and we have forgotten our spiritual side. And it is very easy for that to happen, because we are living in a very material time of the cycle, but that is soon to change, and these changes are slowly occurring. It's like the earth is now going through her labor pains, and that is why we see earthquakes are now starting to increase, and volcanic activity is starting to increase. Weather events are starting to become more severe. The sun is now changing. All of the planets in the solar system are exhibiting changes, and that is because we are starting to see the beginning of a new age, a new time. We're moving out of the Iron Age, and this is what happens. And of course they are creating a narrative around that, and they are blaming us for all of these changes, but that is because they are evil, and the majority of mankind are idiots and can believe these ridiculous these ridiculous beliefs, because they don't go do any research for themselves. All right, so they did not believe Jesus died on the cross literally. They rejected the idea of needing priests and churches to worship the Creator. Wow, interesting that, isn't it? So we all have a connection to our Creator, a personal connection. Each of us contain a fragment of divinity within us to different degrees. And I've said this before, because everything happens by degree, from highest to lowest. It's the hierarchy of existence of the created world of the universe. Okay, and so those with the highest degree of divinity within are the divine. The highest, very highest degree of divinity is Jesus. That's why he is given a special title, because he is the firstborn, the first emanation of God the Father onto the physical plane. And so he is the embodiment of the divine in the highest degree, and we give him a special title called Jesus. He's known by other names in other cultures. He's known by Shiva, he's known by Thor, Apollo, Dionysus. There's many different titles. Anything where you see that there is a main hero in a cultural mythology or legend, and he has supernatural powers, and you know, a lot of times they say that he glows, he is the shining one, he is, you know, exhibiting these powerful superhuman skills. It is talking about the firstborn divine son. And the reason that they created a lot of legends and mythologies and parables around the firstborn divine son is that it was easier to allow that knowledge to survive. Okay, as we come down into the lower ages, when you have a story repeating itself over and over and over again in all of the different cultures, it will help that story survive the lower ages, but it also helps us put the pieces of the puzzle back together, because they knew that in these times that there would be a very few, okay? Many are called, few are chosen. The road to life is narrow. A few there be that find it. The path to destruction is wide. You know, straight is the gate, narrow is the path. You know, there's many different ways of describing how few are the people that actually go and seek out this knowledge for themselves and put all these pieces back together. But that is why they relayed the knowledge in the way that they did, and they just didn't put it, you know, the way they didn't literally put it out like I'm putting it out now. The only reason that I'm putting it out now, you know, they say there's a season of silence and a season to talk, you know, a season to speak. And it's because we are so close. We are so close to the tipping point now that I have nothing to lose by just giving out all of this knowledge to you guys, because literally no one's going to believe me anyway, other than a very few of you that go and do your own research. Look at what I'm telling you and go and do it for yourself, which will be even fewer. So few will find my knowledge, and even fewer will go and look it out, will go and research it and make it their own truth by going and doing their own research and confirming it themselves repeatedly until it becomes knowledge to them as well on the level that's needed. So that's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. So that is why I'm relaying this knowledge the way I am. If I was doing this in the time of the Cathars, you know, 600-700 years ago, I would have been burned at the stake. No doubt, probably in some of my past reincarnations, if I was interested in this knowledge and was doing this, I probably was burned at the stake. You know, who knows? Who knows? I mean, we don't know what our previous incarnations were, but, you know, anybody that was relaying this knowledge back then was definitely sought out, hunted down, and burned alive or tortured, slaughtered, and who knows, that may even still happen when they take full control of our system and our society that's coming as well. So, I mean, that may also be in my future. I don't know, but I do know that I am revealing information that they do not want out there. And so, you know, look, even if I help a few people, it's been worth it to me, because that just gives the Antichrist a fuck you. That's how I see it. Like, giving out all of this knowledge now is really not only to help people, and especially people that have children, because children to me are the most important out of all of humanity and the most precious souls and the most precious. But it's really a fuck you to the Antichrist that I have this knowledge and I'm giving it out freely. You know, whether people accept this knowledge, whether people want to believe it, not believe it, see it as a curiosity, I don't really care. I would suggest that people go and research this further, because it's no good just listening to me and believing what I say. it's not going to help you. You have to actually go and look at this knowledge for yourself and study it to the level that you need to understand it, so it becomes your own knowledge on that level. So it becomes wisdom to you, so that you become the hermit, number 9. Okay, that you become enlightened. That's what enlightenment is. Knowing on that level that you are a soul and that you contain a divine fragment, that there are divine humans, and that you are a creation from the divine mind, from the all, from the prime creator. They are the most important truths that you need to know on a very, very deep level, so that it becomes wisdom for you, so that it becomes an understanding for you, and you cannot be shaken from that understanding, from that knowledge. That is your rock. Right. The Cathars also largely regarded men and women as equals. Okay, the Cathars believed in reincarnation. The Cathars believed in scriptural injunction, i.e., the teachings of scriptures cannot be changed. Meaning that the practice of simony, buying and selling rolls in the church, or the selling of indulgences to cleanse your sins and get you into heaven. The Cathars didn't agree with that. Okay, and the Catholic Church were telling people that you can just pay me some money and I can forgive you of your sins and you're going to get a ticket to heaven. Okay, this is why Catholicism and modern Christianity is the religion for the spiritually lazy. Okay, you would have to be so spiritually lazy to believe that. To believe that a mortal man, just because he's wearing a robe, okay, and he's sitting in some big impressive looking cathedral that is man-made, can just forgive you of your sins. Okay, not going to happen. All right, and that is what the Cathars did not believe, and so, well, the Catholic Church did not like that. They believed God existed in everything, and so respected nature and all living things. Okay, so God is everything. Okay, God is everything that we see around us, because we exist within God's projected, created universe, mental creation. If you don't understand that, I suggest you go back to my last live stream and listen to the 7 Hermetic Principles, the most ancient science, the science of the ancient Egyptians, the science of the ancient Greeks, the science of ancient man, of every single ancient culture. This was the true science, Hermetic science. I also have another video, which isn't a live stream and it's more kind of concise, and that is to trust your own intellect, and Hermetic science allows you to trust in your own intellect. When you understand the science of, you don't need a university degree to study and understand Hermetics. Okay, that's a lie. Again, they've tried to make everything so confusing and difficult, so that if you wanted to study science, or you wanted to believe that you understood science, that you have to believe that you need to be really, really intellectual enough to make it into university and to be one of those university parrots. You don't. Okay, they're idiots. They're a bunch of idiots that just parrot each other. You don't need to know algebra. Okay, you don't need to know any of that type of mathematics. It's pretty simple, actually. The most basic mathematics is all you need to know. Numerology, can you count to 1 to 100? Do you understand the golden mean ratio? Do you understand the Fibonacci sequence? It does help if you understand pi. It's not a big thing. You don't need to. Okay, I was never really good at modern mathematics. Okay, but I do understand the golden mean ratio. I do understand numerology, and I do understand the Fibonacci sequence. That's all you need to know. Okay, and then study Hermetic science. That's all you need to know. You don't. I had someone who was on one of my videos, my last video, actually my last live stream I did about the New Age community pushing the alien psyop, and she tried to trip me up. You know, these New Agers, they think that I'm the new kid on the block, you know, because they just discover my videos and they think that I've been around a year or so. No, I've been around for 12 years, okay, and I know all the tricks. And so she was like, oh, you need to study biology and chemistry and algebra, and, you know, started listing off. Obviously, she just copied and pasted it from somewhere because she was as dumb as dog shit herself. And you need to study all that for you to have a full understanding. No, you don't. Okay, that's the thing. You don't. And if you do understand all of that chemistry and algebra and it actually works against you, because you're stuck in a materialistic understanding of the universe, of universal operation. That's not where you want to be. You want to have an understanding for the materialistic side of everything, but you also want to open yourself up to the spiritual side of everything, because the material is an extension of the spiritual, of the ethereal plane. So yeah, don't be one of those people that get caught up in that you just need to be really, really smart and go to university to understand any science. No, you don't need that to understand Hermetic science. And if you understand Hermetic science, you understand divine operation in the material world and the ethereal plane too. And then you're on your path to going and gathering more knowledge and having a full understanding of who you are, so that you can grasp the key that opens the door to knowledge. Okay, and then you can go and look at any sacred text and have an understanding for it. You don't need me to decode it for you. They believe God, as I said, yeah, they believe God existed in everything and so respected nature and all living things. That doesn't mean they didn't eat meat. Of course they eat meat. They just respect the animal. They respect the animal giving its life. In the Colburn Bible, I think it's in the ancient Egyptian text of the Bronze Book. It could actually be in the Celtic text of the Cole Book, but it's in one of those. I can't quite remember, guys. But it says that don't eat an animal before it's a year old. So give it that first year before you actually consume it to sustain your own life, so that that animal has had its experience, you know, on the material plane as well. So, no, you don't have to learn Latin to understand this knowledge. Don't have to learn Latin. Don't have to know Hebrew. Actually, if I was going to say a language that you should understand, it's probably Hebrew, because the symbols of Hebrew are important in some of the symbolism. But you don't need to start there. It's good to have an understanding of Hebrew. It does help with Kabbalah. Latin, not so much. You don't need to understand Latin. All you have to do is actually go and look at the etymology of words, and then that's about as much of Latin that you need to actually understand. So no, you don't need to understand Latin. Right. They didn't engage in worldliness or put much worth in physical possessions, preferring to live a minimalist and simple life. No, you don't need to study Aramaic. Can you read English? Can you read English? If you can read English, you can read the Gospels. Okay? So you don't need to study any other language, all right? You just need to read the Gospels in English and apply the knowledge that you have in regards to all of the other numerology and the symbols and the legends and the mythology and the cross-culture theology to the scriptures that you are reading. So I suggest, Monty, that you actually stop chatting, because I have actually been pretty clear about the rules of the live stream, and so has Chris. I've seen that he's given you a last warning, and that's pretty good. He's even given you a warning. He didn't have to do that, okay? So if you want to keep chattering, then what you're doing is actually distracting me so that I cannot actually get through all of this information, distracting the other students who are here to learn, and not actually taking in any information from yourself, because what you're doing is actually projecting what you think you already know onto us, onto me. Okay, I'm letting you know what you need to go and study this knowledge. If you think you need to go and study Latin, and you want to go and study other languages, and you want to go and look at all the other translations, that's totally up to you. Okay, you can go and do that. I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't suggest it, only because you've got a limited amount of time to get a really good handle of this knowledge that I'm relaying right now. So if you want to go waste your time learning all of these other languages, then fine. If that makes you feel more intellectual, go right ahead and do it. I'm telling you, you don't need to do that. You just need to have a full understanding of the 7 Hermetic principles, And then you need to go and study symbolism, the major arcana of the tarot. The Rider-Waite Tarot is my suggestion. Buy a copy of the Kabbalion, study the Nag Hammadi Gospels, and also study the Kabbalah Tree of Life. Okay? And that'll give you a good start to understanding this knowledge to the level you need to, because once you understand the main tools, esoteric tools, you can go and read all of the other mythologies and the legends and all of the other scriptures and the holy texts in English and understand them. Okay? So, Chris, can you remove Monty, please? He's obviously just not getting it, wasting our time. Right. You can still listen in, Monty, but you've used up all of your time here. So, yeah, you're gone, mate. Just listen for a change, okay? Less chatting, all right? More listening. It's like, you know, I think I find the people who chat the least are the ones who actually really get this to the level that they want. Guys, you have to stop chatting with your opinions, okay? Just, if you don't want to learn, I don't know why you're here. I don't get it. Right, so Cathars referred to themselves as Christians, but the Catholic Church called them the Albigenses, and that is spelled Albigenses. All right, so again, yeah, I'm not going to get into the whole, vegetarian, argument. I've already gone down that path before. The Gospel of Thomas literally says it doesn't matter what goes into your mouth, it matters what comes out of your mouth. That is what will destroy you. So, I personally think, I like what the Colburn teaches, that you don't eat an animal before they're a year old, gives them a time to experience creation and to experience life. And then when we utilize an animal, when we kill an animal to sustain ourselves, we respect that animal, and we do it in a humane and respectful way, as humanely and respectfully as we can. And that's what the Cathars did. There is nowhere in any of the Cathars texts here, any of the Nag Hammadi Gospels, that says that they don't eat meat. This is just historians saying this. Okay, again, stay away from all of this Cathar.org and all of these. They're poisoning the well on purpose, okay? They're making you believe that if you want to be a Gnostic Christian and be as spiritual as these Gnostic Christians, that you don't eat meat, right? Or you go and meditate, or you don't engage in any forms of violence. Absolutely, the Gnostic Cathars put up a fight against the Catholics. They fought back. They even actually won some of these battles against the Catholics and regained some of their territories. Okay, so they absolutely had no problems with fighting and killing people who were threatening, evil people who were threatening their families and their existence and them. Right. After exterminating the Gnostics, who were the main threat to their narrative, the Catholic Church then moved on to using the Spanish Inquisition to exterminate any group or person not adhering to the Catholic canon, such as the philosopher and hermeticist Giordano Bruno. So Giordano Bruno, who was literally burned alive at the stake. Let us just thank him for being a person who stood up against the Catholic Church. And you have to wonder why they did this back then, okay? Because where did he benefit in giving others the truth, other than ending up on the pyre? So we need to revere these people, okay? We need to thank these people. If there are going to be any days for saints where we all stop and we have a feast of the saints, we should be feasting for these people. We should be honoring these people, the true Christians, the true saints, who died so that we could have this knowledge. The Catholic Church also imprisoned Galileo because he would not agree to the heliocentric model of the universe, and under threat of death, he recanted his theory. Now, a lot of people believe that that's all the ancients knew, that it was a heliocentric and not around the sun. No, they knew both. Okay, it's just the heliocentric way was just one way that they were determining the movement of the planets as a way to record the motions, because back then, and we don't know it anymore, and I'm sure it's locked up under the Vatican, the movements of the heavens relate to our destinies and our fates and the way that things play out, as above so below. And so we don't understand what the movements of Jupiter and the movements of Mars and the movements of Venus and all of these different movements, we don't understand what they truly mean to us as souls on the physical plane anymore, because that knowledge has been stolen and modern astrologists have no clue, but they are important. And so the ancients knew that and they watched them. And I can tell you now that the Vatican has astrologers and astronomers that absolutely know what the movements of the heavens mean, and they are watching for something, because that is going to give them a cue of when they actually play out their script on humanity. And we're getting there. We're getting there, because they're going to crown their false Messiah on May the 6th. And things are going to really turn bad. We're going to take a turn for the worse after the 6th of May. So enjoy the pause that we've been having. Okay, the little pause in their script, if you can call it that, because obviously the shit show is still playing in the background with Ukraine and all of that. But Westerners, our time of not being affected by the Antichrist script in the way that other countries have been, and other peoples and other cultures, is coming to an end very, very soon. So ready yourself, ready your souls for that, because it's going to be quite ugly. It's going to be quite horrific for what they have planned for us. They're keeping the best to last, put it that way. Right. Now, William Tyndale. So what I'm doing, even though these people have not really got much to do with the Gnostic Gospels, I just wanted to give them I wanted to make reference to these people who have sacrificed themselves for our benefit. So William Tyndale was also burned at the stake in 1536 for daring to translate the Bible into English so that people could read the Bible without help of a priest. At the time of his death, 18,000 copies of his New Testament had been printed. However, only 2 complete volumes and a fragment remain today at the London British Library. So they went and destroyed the 18,000 copies that William Tyndale had translated. So yeah, we pretty much know why that was. All right. Oh, now here's the Apocrypha definition that I wanted to give you guys just before we start into the Gospel of Thomas. Let us just read this from the Encyclopedia Britannica, and it says, from Greek, meaning to hide away. So that's what Apocrypha means, to hide away. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Why would they want to hide away these texts? Maybe because these texts are actually the true teachings. And in biblical literature, it means works outside of an accepted canon of Scripture. The history of the term's usage indicates that it referred to a body of esoteric writings that were at first prized, later tolerated, and finally excluded. And that's what we have today. The Catholic Church completely excluding these Gospels and calling them a heresy, when really they're not. They're just the Gospels that didn't make it into the accepted canon and the accepted Bible of the Catholic Church. All right, let us begin the Gospel of Thomas. Now, obviously, we are going to have to do this in parts. This video, this live stream will just be the first part, and I will just keep going until we've finished it all. And then after this, I'm going to start decoding the I think the tarot, guys, the major arcana of the tarot. And what we'll do is just start looking at all of these scriptures and these esoteric tools in this way and start decoding them like that. So let me just have a drink before we get into it. All right, the Gospel of Thomas. Now, before I do start, there are a couple of different interpretations. I will post, I have posted actually underneath this video, the other interpretation that's done by the Pearl Society. Okay, so there was another interpretation. There are not a lot of differences between this translation, not an interpretation, because when they're translating, they have to interpret them to a certain degree as well. So there are a few little differences between the two translations, not a lot. So it's good to read both, so you have both translations at hand. But I'm going to go with the most accepted translation, which is the one that are on the naghammadigospels.org, I think, website. And so, as I've said, both of those links are down below the video. So these are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke and Didymus Judas Thomas recorded. Okay? 1. Whoever discovers the interpretation of these sayings will not taste death. Now, that is pretty self-explanatory, and I have gone over this many times, that if you understand this knowledge to the degree that you are required to understand this knowledge, then you will pass through the weighing of the heart at the end of the great year and move through into the golden age with the divine race, the divine souls, 288 divine souls. Now, there are two ways that we can actually move through into the new great year and pass the weighing of the heart and pass the great last judgment. And one is the possession of knowledge, because it proves to the universe, it proves to the creator, the prime creator, that you are someone worthy of bringing through into the next great year, because you care about truth. You don't want to be ignorant, and you are courageous enough to go and seek it out, and you have done the work. You have spent the time, instead of indulging in the materialism of these times and being distracted by materialism and insignificant and unimportant distractions, to actually go and study knowledge and look up knowledge and find knowledge about him, the creator, the prime creator, and knowledge about his children, the divine souls, because that is why you see a definite distinction between God's children and those who are not God's children. And people think, oh, well, God's children are us because we're Christians. We go to church. We are his bride, they say. No. The only people who are God's children are the divine 288 souls, and we are the extension of the 288 souls. And so only if we prove ourselves will we attain immortality. And so that means that we will not taste death at the end of the great year, like all of the other ignorant, mindless, and insignificant souls that are currently in existence, because everyone likes to think they're special, but they're not. Only the 288 divine souls are special, and those who are seeking to have an understanding of themselves are regarded as being of benefit to creation, because that's what it's about. It's not a God sitting in the clouds with a book and he's like, I don't like you, I don't like you. It's about ensuring that creation exists in its most peak, prime, perfect, and absolute pinnacle of existence, because creation has to ensure it continues to exist in its form, in its current form, in a form that is perfection. And currently that's not the case, because everyone is literally pretty much ignorant of who they are. And when I say everyone, I don't mean everyone. I mean the majority. 99% of humanity have no idea who they really are and of these truths. And so they are not going to benefit creation, because they've shown themselves not worthy. They've shown themselves to be easily swayed. They've shown themselves to build their castles, their houses on sand instead of on rock, and they don't really care about knowledge. Now, the other way to find yourself, or to ensure that you are immortal and move through into the great year with the divine, is to be kind. And that is a harder way, especially in these times when kindness is looked upon as a flaw in humanity and in humans. You know, it is not rewarded. If you are kind, you are trampled on. You are not going to get your promotion at work. You know, you are not going to do well in a world ruled by psychopaths if you are kind. So that's another way. And now the universe has a way of weighing and measuring all souls as well. And so it's not that, you know, each soul is going to be weighed and measured based on the experiences of their incarnations. And so, of course, souls who have access to this knowledge and disregard it are going to be weighed heavily against that. Souls who didn't have so much access to this knowledge because of the experience in their incarnation that they may not have come into contact with that knowledge are going to be weighed differently. But at the end of the great year, 144,000 mortal souls will move through into the great year with the 288 divine souls. That's what Noah's Ark represents as well, okay? And that's why I always like to say, think of it as an ark, and it can only carry a certain weight. And so we're all moving through on the ark into the new great year, to the golden age. And so only 144 souls will fit onto that ark. 144,000 souls will have the right weight to fit onto that ark and move through with the 288 divine souls. So study the knowledge, understand the knowledge to the level that you need to understand it, and be one of those 144,000 souls. That's a way you can guarantee that you are going to move through into the golden age and through the new age, is to understand this knowledge to the level that it needs to be understood. You won't do that by just listening to my live streams and my videos, by the way. You must go and seek this knowledge out for yourself, and seek out an understanding and study this knowledge for yourself. And once you actually make a concerted effort to do that, then the universe conspires to help you find that knowledge. Everything will be basically aligned for you so that you can continue walking down that path of discovery, and these subjects will find a way to you so that you continue to peel back the layers of understanding, and the veil is slowly removed from your eyes, or the scales are removed from your eyes. The veil is removed from your mind, and you can start to understand this to the level that you will. If you're trying to use the knowledge that you learn in the New Age community, the New Age gurus, if you're trying to fuse that in with this knowledge, it won't work. You will stay blind. And if you're trying to bring in modern Christianity and fuse it with this knowledge, it won't work. Okay, you have to start again. Begin like a child. That is why the 0 card is the Fool card in the major arcana of the tarot, because it's the Fool has to remove everything and begin like an innocent child once again, and start his learning from the beginning. Start his discovery of knowledge from the very beginning. Right, number 2. Jesus said, those who seek should not stop seeking until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. When they are disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over all. After they have reigned, they will rest. Right, so that is just telling you the operation of divine knowledge on the masses in the final days of the great year, in the Iron Age that we're in. So you have to keep seeking out knowledge until you find knowledge. You can't, we're all going to go down false paths. I've gone down false paths. I got trapped in Buddhism for a year. It was the most horrible, oppressive year of my life, okay? That I was the most fake, disingenuous, oppressed person that I've ever been in my life. And I was just miserable because I couldn't be who I really was. I couldn't express myself in any other way other than being fake nice, okay? Other than being loving all the time, peaceful, and me trying to be peaceful is just no, okay? It doesn't work with my personality. And so I was so miserable. And then I went on to star seeds. I went on to the New Age. I actually did Wicca for a year. That was around 2003, I think, or maybe 2000. But yeah, look, I've done them all, guys. I've gone down every path, all right? Nobody, who looks for knowledge gets it the first time. We all get taken down the false paths, and the false paths are put there on purpose. Okay, the Antichrists have laid them all out for us. Okay, the New Age community, the New Age movement, that's an Antichrist movement. They put that there because they knew not all of us were going to be able to be herded over into Christianity, modern Christianity, okay, in the religious path. Some of us weren't going to like that path. Some of us wanted something different, but we were interested in spirituality, so they herded us down the New Age path. All of those paths are the incorrect paths, but you have to keep going, okay? When you find, what you do is you engage in critical thinking. Critical thinking is actually finding flaw in everything, okay? That is the best way to ascertain whether you have knowledge, whether you have truth, is you have to find flaw in it. You have to look for flaws. You have to be critical about it. Most people won't do that because they don't want to upset what they want to be the truth. Okay, people find a certain knowledge, a certain belief that is given to them, that is relayed to them, like Greg Braden, okay, he's a perfect example because he gives a certain belief and it's very attractive. And so people don't want to look for flaw in that. People don't want to go and look at the ancient texts that he claims that he's getting his information from, even though he never actually gives reference to any of the ancient texts or teachings where he gets his beliefs and where he asserts these truths. But people don't want to upset the apple cart. They don't want to go and look it out. I'm happy with that. I want it to be that. I want to just be able to go and meditate. I want to just be able to go do yoga. I just want to be able to go say namaste. I want to go and do, vegetarian diet. I don't actually want the truth because that actually means I'll have to do some work. I'll have to be responsible for my actions. And so most people won't go and seek and seek and seek until they find. But if you want the truth, you have to keep seeking until you find. And you will find it because you will engage in critical thinking and you will start to disregard what doesn't add up, what doesn't, and so you'll get so far down a certain path and then you'll start going, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. That's a contradiction. And then you realize, okay, red flag, not going to go down there anymore, disregard that one, okay? And so you'll do this with a lot of text, the emerald texts of Thoth the Atlantean. I can't tell you how many times I've said, I'm going to do a live stream about hermetics, or I'm going to go and teach, do a video on hermetics, or I start talking about, and someone will bring up, oh, I can't wait to, hermetics. I really love, that Emerald Text of Thoth the Atlantic, that is a false text. Okay? You only have to look at who actually wrote it. And that's a great way of looking at any modern text. Go and research who wrote the text, who they were affiliated with. Did they get any money? I mean, look, that is the best way in these times to test the spirits. And I say this all the time. Okay? We have to raise the bar for who we're getting information of in these times. And so a great way to raise the bar is to see, do they profit from this materially? Do they profit from this in any way? You know, are they getting popularity because of what they're teaching? Are they getting, you know, notoriety? Are they actually benefiting from this financially? And if you tick yes, yes, yes to any of those, then disregard those people. Okay, especially if they're profiting from this. Now, I'm not saying that there could not be somebody out there who has actually started discovering the truth and then in their ignorance start thinking that they can make money about it, you know, with this. They can start being a YouTube partner. They can, I mean, really it doesn't work that way because this type of knowledge isn't very popular. Once you start saying to people, oh, look, you're responsible for your own actions, you're going to be responsible, there's going to be a time that we're all weighed and measured, people don't like to hear that. So right away, you probably lose 95% of your audience just in that, just in teaching that. So, but say that someone in ignorance, you know, when they first discover this knowledge, think that they can make money from that. Well, you know, even though they might be relaying some of this knowledge in a way that is factual, you have to disregard them because you have to raise that bar. You just have to do it in these times. You cannot afford to be taken down the wrong path. So unfortunately, anybody who is profiting materially from this knowledge, even if they're doing it and they don't have a nefarious agenda, just because of the times we're in, you have to negate them. You have to you don't have time to go down that path. And so straight away, to me, that's how I test the spirits. If anybody ever says to me, oh, you know, there's so-and-so, you should listen to his live stream, or you should go and read this book, or you should go and listen to this person. The first thing I do is look for a donate button. The first thing I do is go and look to see if they're writing a book and selling a book. And if they are, I just don't listen to them because I just cannot afford to, in these times, to have that bar any lower than absolutely as high as it can be. And that is my top tier way of determining and testing the spirits is, are you profiting from this materially? Because I'm sorry, as soon as you start profiting from this because people are donating to you or people are buying your book, you have to actually then appease them. Because, oh, well, I've just donated $50 to you and I don't, and then you're doing a video and then they start disagreeing with you. Well, they've just donated to you. You're going to be torn about whether you want to disagree with them openly in front of when you know that they are helping you materially. So again, you're setting yourself up for being open to not allowing yourself to be absolutely truthful. Personally, I don't give a shit if people unsub me, if they complain when I block them. I don't care. You know, if someone's not aligning themselves to the group chat rules and they get blocked, doesn't bother me because I don't take any money from anybody, so I don't have to worry about offending somebody that's just donated $50 or $100 or bought my book. Couldn't give a shit. If you can't align yourself to the group rules that we have, if you want to argue with me, if you want to just give your opinion all the time, I have no problem with deleting you from my experience, and then I don't actually feel guilty about it because, well, you've donated $50 or you bought a book or whatever it is. So again, that is really, really important that you test the spirits, and that is a good way that I test the spirits. Then it says, when they are disturbed, they will marvel. Well, of course. When you are disturbed by the fact that you know that the antichrists have infiltrated everything, have taken full control of all of the religions, have taken full control of all of the different aspects of our society, the media, you know, the education departments, religion, the business community. I mean, you name it, they've infiltrated it, and we are living completely false lives. Now, when you first realize that and you realize what they have planned for us, because they are literally going to destroy what they can't inherit, and that does include thermonuclear war, okay, they are going to try and remove a good section of humanity as a way to attack the Creator, because they hate the Creator. They hate the Creator, they hate the divine laws, and they hate that they had to be good souls to attain immortality. They don't think it's fair that the divine souls, they can actually transgress divine law, and it doesn't matter because they are divine, they are still going to be immortal regardless. They don't think that's fair. And so the best way to get back at the Creator is to attack his creation. They're doing it subtly now by basically psychologically manipulating us about our genders, about our sexual persuasions. They're now pushing this at our children because, of course, the children are the most purest souls and are closest to God the Creator, and so they are going to try and target the most purest amongst us. So feel sorry for those little souls, and there are many little souls that are going through literal hell on earth right now because they are being trafficked, and I can only imagine the horrors that are being enacted on these little souls by the Antichrist, who are trying to get back at the Creator through his creation. And so this is why we are disturbed by these truths. But then, as I said, we marvel because we understand that we are a fragment of the Creator. We do know that because we are responsible for our actions, we can actually determine our fates in the way that we can, you know, seek out knowledge and an understanding for ourselves and our Creator, and this knowledge, and access our immortality and move through into the golden age. Or we don't have to do that at all. I mean, it is completely up to us. Our fates are in our hands right now, and especially anybody listening to this video, you can make a decision and a choice right now of whether to go and seek out this knowledge more deeply and to research this knowledge to the level that you need to research this to, so it becomes wisdom and you understand it at that level. Or you can just see it as a novelty. You can just see it as a curiosity and, oh yeah, that's pretty interesting, and then you can go and look at a Greg Braden video or another video, and it doesn't really matter because you made the choice. So it was never about the Creator choosing who passes judgment and who doesn't. It was always whether we decided to make the choices to pass judgment or to, you know, attain immortality. It was always us. We decided whether we were going to destroy ourselves or not. So that is the marvel in it all, that you now have the key to unlocking the truth about who you are and who we all are, and who is, you know, that we are a fragment of divinity, and that there are divine humans, there are 288 divine humans within the human race, within humanity as well. So we know all of these marvelous things, and that they are going to soon have access to their superhuman skills, because they are literally gods on earth, and they will have godlike powers, godlike skills. And so we are going to be able to understand that when we see that. A lot of people who survive the nukes, because they will nuke everywhere, and, you know, there will be probably only a quarter of humanity that will survive that. A lot of them will see the gods illuminate, will see the divine illuminate and not understand it. They will not understand what they are seeing. Many of the Christians will think that they are seeing the false Messiah and false Christ. Many will think they are seeing aliens. And some will understand the truth. And those ones who do understand the truth will be the ones who discovered this knowledge and who have taken the path to life. And that is why when you do have access to this knowledge, your destiny will align in a way that you can move through these coming times in a way to survive them. I'm not saying that we're not going to experience something very negative, but we will also experience it in a way that isn't as negative as those who are completely ignorant of themselves. And then they will reign over all, meaning that those who have the knowledge are going to be elevated above those who don't have the knowledge, okay? And I myself believe that those who do access the knowledge to the level that they need to and move into the golden age with the divine, the 144,000, I do believe that they will actually exhibit something different physically than those who do not meet the requirements to go into the golden age. So that is just, I cannot find anything in the text, but I just do believe that there is something that is going to be different. And I think there actually is something in the scriptures about the 144,000. But I do believe that they will exhibit something. And so they will reign over all because they have proven themselves worthy, okay? And they must be listened to. The mortal humans that survive what's coming will be obedient to those who have shown themselves worthy. And that's just how universal divine operation will be. And then the gods will rule over all, even over the 144,000. But I do believe that there will be degrees of difference within the 144,000 as well, because that is just how universal design works. And when we look at the statue of Daniel, we see that it goes gold, silver, bronze, iron, clay. And so iron, clay are the mortals that do not pass judgment, and iron are the 144,000 mortals that will pass the weighing of the heart and last judgment and move into the great year. And I do believe within that 144,000 there's probably more degrees that we just don't know of, but we will soon find out when all of this plays out. And after they have reigned, they will rest. And that is talking about when we move into the golden age, and we are just, there's no reason for us to have to assert authority, and people have to be more powerful than others. And this is what Saturnia and Chronia represents. So one of the celebrations within Saturnia and Chronia is that the master and the servant swap places for the day, and all are seen as equal. Okay, it's a way of symbolizing equality, and that is what happens really in the golden age, is that really the gods do not even have to rule over anybody, because everybody's peaceful, everybody's happy, everybody's just resting, everybody's just pursuing our gifts. Each of us have our own special gifts, our own special skills, and we will just be pursuing our skills and our arts and our creativity, and we will be building and creating and and just doing everything that we just love doing. I mean, that is the rewards, and that is what the golden age is all about, and why it is so in our psyche. The golden age is in every single culture. We can see that it is relayed that there's this time on earth where everything is perfect. Everything is in abundance. We don't need to squabble because we all have everything. So that is when we rest. That is when the hard The hard stuff's over. And really, if we think the hard stuff is now, we ain't seeing nothing yet, because it's coming. So now what we're doing is using this knowledge to ready our souls for what the Antichrists have planned for us. Okay, Jesus said, if your leaders say to you, look, the Father's kingdom is in the sky, then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. Rather, the Father's kingdom is within you and is outside of you. So, this really just relates to the principle of mentalism, that everything we are experiencing is part of the mental expression of the Creator, and that is everything that you see, all of the animals, all of the trees, rocks, the water, us, and when it says that the Father's kingdom is within you, that means that the Father's kingdom is your divine portion that is within you. And as I've said before, each of us hold a divine portion within us. This is what the Lamb represents. Jesus holds the divine portion to the highest degree. That is why he gets a special, significant title attached to him, because he does have that divine portion to the highest degree, and that is what the Lamb represents. It also is what the bull represents, and we see that in the Hindu culture. The cow and the bull is sacred, and even Vishnu. So their prime creator is fragmented into different attributes, and so Vishnu is the mental part of the creator, and Brahma is the creative process, the creative divine operational process of the prime creator. And so that is why the bull and the cow is also very important symbolism, because it relates to your divine portion. Even the horse is another that relates to your divine portion, and the lamb relates to the divine portion, but that is specific to Jesus. And so each of us have that portion within us, and we have to honor that. We have to honor ourselves. We can't go defacing our bodies overly. I'm not saying, and I've said this in other live streams, doesn't mean that we can't, embellish our body, but just don't go overboard. The whole tattoos on the neck and the face, that fad at the moment is just defacing God's creation, and that is why they're pushing that fad. That is why you see all of these rappers and these celebrities pushing the fad of the whole tattooed face, okay? Because all of the celebrities, every single one of them, have signed their souls over to the Antichrists. Even when they speak out against the government or out against certain things within our society, and they seem to be on our side, they are just playing their role as controlled opposition. Okay, it's to keep us confused. But all of them have signed their souls over. So I'm sorry if you have a favourite celebrity, because he has sold his soul over to the Antichrist. And that is why they encourage these certain actions within humanity. It's to push the masses down the false path, down a wrong path. And so, yeah, you don't want to be dishonouring your body. You don't want to be indulging in gluttony. You know how this whole thing about fat is beautiful right now, and obesity. Look, I'm not saying that a curvy woman isn't beautiful, okay, because I do believe that, those stick-thin females are just as unattractive as the really obese females, okay? And when you see all of the ancient paintings, all the paintings of the Renaissance and all of those times, and the women were quite fleshy and voluptuous, and that is because that is a symbolism towards how it's hard to put this into words. So if we know that our bodies are a reflection of the Creator, then more body, more flesh is more of the Creator in the physical form. And so that is why a woman who was very curvaceous was honouring her physical self in that way, because it was showing that she had an excess of, or a an abundance, but not an overabundance as an obesity, because that just looks horrible. But that was God's presence on the physical plane in that form. So when you're really skinny, then there's less of God's presence on the physical form in the human form, and on the physical plane in the human form, if you can understand what I'm saying. When you're obese, then you've turned God's presence on the physical plane, so God's form on the physical plane, when it's obesity, is just it is a defacing of God's form, because it looks horrible. I mean, you physically get a reaction to seeing someone that is overly obese. It's not attractive. It turns your stomach, and it's unhealthy. I mean, these people are unhealthy. And so this whole everybody is beautiful, even if you are really obese. And I've seen these videos where people lie, and there is this really fat, obese, overly unattractive, obese woman dancing and prancing, or, showing herself in a video, like a TikTok video or a YouTube short, whatever it is. And everyone will be saying, oh, you're beautiful. Oh, you're so beautiful. And they're lying. Okay, this is what New Agers do, and people that are false do. They lie, okay, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions, okay? And they're just lying. And so when you lie like that and you pretend like, and I'm not saying to, if somebody has gone out, and made a big effort to, say, make a dress, okay, and they've just started sewing, all right, and they say, look at the dress I've made, and it's really bad. And you say, oh, it's good, yeah, no, you've done a good job. That's a white lie, okay? You've done that because you don't want to hurt someone's feelings, all right? That's different to outright lying about somebody's physical appearance that is overtly obese, is unhealthy, and you are just telling them an untruth because you don't want to, be truthful to them and appear to be intolerant, because that's what it's about today, isn't it? In our politically correct times, you all have to be part of the herd, don't you? You have to all go along with what everybody else is doing. And this is another antichrist thing of what they do. They create these social engineering psyops, and one of them is this big is beautiful. That's why you've got Calvin Klein with, obese people now fronting their advertisements. You've got, all of Vogue and, these different fashion outlets are now showing obese people, obese models. Okay, so that's a psyop. And so what they do is then they just push this social engineering, this psyops, onto the collective, who then will go along with it. So that is why, because God is us, that we are a reflection and a fragment of God. It doesn't mean we are gods or equal to God. It just means we are fragments of God. We need to honor that within ourselves. And that means, have some self-respect. Have a bit of modesty. If you're a woman, don't go putting your meat on display for everybody. Have a little bit of modesty and self-respect. Don't go sleeping around and being the whore, even though they tried to make being a slut shaming. You can even be a proud slut in these times. Again, it's a psyops, okay? You don't want to do that. Females are elevated in the eyes of the prime creator, because females are part of the creation process and bringing forth of the divine sparks, of humanity and also of God onto the physical plane. Without the female, God couldn't populate the physical and material plane in the flesh. So that is why you need to honor yourself, okay? Because God is within us, God is without us, God is everywhere. And this is why I find it funny when modern Christians think you are a heretic when you say that the Christ is within, even though the Bible says the Christ is within. Okay, they will, you're one of those, New Age Christians, or they think it's heresy to even consider that, all right? Or to even consider that nature is part of God's creation. Can you believe that? That God created the universe, God created everything, but it's heresy to actually elevate, or not elevate, but revere nature and the natural world as a creation of God, and to care for nature. It doesn't mean go the other way and be a, because they're so worried that if you care about nature and you care about the trees and you care about the rivers and you care about the animals, then that's going to make you a pagan. They're just, these people are so lost. There really is no helping them. And I mean, I constantly still have debates with all of these Christians on all of these Christian YouTube channels, and it's not for the benefit of the ones who argue with me, because they're never going to get it. Okay, they're never going to get it. It's for the ones who are watching the conversation and who are already having doubts. So my suggestion to you is, if you do actually find yourself in one of these discussions and you think that it's just, why bother? They're just lost and you're never going to reach them, and you're just, going to create conflict. Yeah, and, being someone that is in possession of truth, you can't escape conflict with the ignorant, okay? But it's those who are watching the conversation that are having the doubts that you might be reaching. And if you even save one soul or two souls, well, I'm telling you, that is going to be something that weighs well on your soul and on your weighing, at the weighing of the heart and great, the last judgment. If you are trying to help others and you have, managed to turn someone from a false path and start looking, I mean, even if they just go looking at other knowledge, you've done something to benefit others. And it may have cost you, a bit of a peace of mind, because, I'm used to arguing with people, and I don't really care. It's just water off a duck's back to me. But I know some of you, you take it personally. Don't take it personally, okay? And sometimes just leave a conversation when you've said your bit. Just leave it. I do that a lot too. I know when I'm just going into the doom loop and it's just going nowhere, and then I just leave it. I put down everything I'm going to say and I leave it. All right. Oh, okay. And when you know yourselves, I didn't get to the end of number 3. When you know yourselves, you will be known, and you will understand that you are children of the living Father. But if you do not know yourselves, you will live in poverty, and you are the poverty. Okay, and that is basically pretty self-explanatory. The living Father is not Jesus, because Jesus says there is only one Father and he is in heaven. So the living Father is the Father in the material world, the Father that we can see manifest materially, okay, all around us, which is what the parable was saying, that that God is everywhere. God is everywhere, okay, and that is what the living Father is. So when you go out of your way to, hack down a tree or deface, a tree, or to hurt an animal, you are hurting God. Okay, and it's even like, when you're driving along the road and there's an animal that's lying in the middle of the road that's just been hit by a car, and I see that a lot here because I live in quite a regional area where, you get a lot of kangaroos and possums and things like that. If you can, it is always good to try to remove the animal from the road, even if it's dead. I often stop and just check the pouch of kangaroos to make sure that there's not a little Joey in there. And then I've got a number on my phone of the wildlife carers around the area. And then I can just go and ring a wildlife carer, and they will either come to my house to pick up the animal, or I'll go and drop it off. But even if you remove the animal from the road, it's just because I just think it's so disrespectful when you just see cars running over these animals like they don't even exist, and just grinding them into the bitumen like they're just nothing, and that is just an assault on the Creator. That's how I see it, and I think that's how we should all see it. Right, I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to leave it, guys. So we got to number 4. I'll do one more. That should probably get us to around 20 past. And then, as I said, we'll just continue doing this decoding as we went. A lot of this video was just explaining who the Cathars were and the Gnostic Gospels So that's why we didn't get through a hell of a lot. But as I've said, I really did want to make reference to who the Gnostics were and to how the Nag Hammadi Gospels came to be found. Right, so number 4. Jesus said, the person old in days won't hesitate to ask a little child 7 days old about the place of life, and that person will live. For many of the first will be last, and many will become a single one. Right, there's a bit to unpack there, isn't there? You know what? I'm going to leave it here for the day. I'm just really hungry. It so takes it out of me when I do these live streams. I swear, at the end of every live stream, I am starving. I must expend so much energy just talking. And I can just feel my stomach rumbling. And when I'm hungry, I just can't think of anything else other than eating. I'm sorry, I'm one of those people. So, and this is quite involved. And so I'm going to leave it until our next live stream so I can get right into that, because it's going to take a little bit of discussion, because it's to do with reincarnation and our positions in reincarnation and and the age of our souls and all of that. So let's do it justice, because I want to do it, you know, all of these parables justice, and explain them correctly. And so I don't care how, you know, how many live streams we have to do, guys, before we get through this Gospel of Thomas in its entirety. But let's leave it there. So next week we'll start with number 4, and I won't have to do an introduction, and so we can just go straight off the bat, straight into number 4, and that's what we'll do. So just before I go, I'm just going to scroll quickly back through a few of your comments, and then we'll call it for today's live stream. Right, Judith, that's why I'll never eat veal. But isn't veal older lamb? I think you mean, don't you think, is veal older lamb or younger lamb? I'm not sure. I thought lamb. Oh no, veal is, right, sorry, veal is cattle, cow, bovine. What do you call it? Beast, bovine. Right, so veal is the younger version of cattle. Right, now I get it. Yeah, and that's sort of, yeah, I agree. I mean, I do like lamb, I have to say, but it's kind of, that animal should at least get a year of existing, because a year in an animal's life, remember, it's quite a long time compared to a year in our life. You know, they get a pretty substantial experience of the material plane and of life and of living and of bounding around a paddock, you know, when they at least have a year. Couldn't explain space travel and got mad. Okay. Space travel. I'm not really understanding where that is from, Aussie Gold. Yeah, I'll just leave that one. Space travel, I don't think we've been to the moon. Critical thinking will tell me that we haven't been to the moon. I don't think we've actually got beyond the upper atmosphere of our planet. Well, in physical form anyway, as in a human, because I don't think we can get past Van Allen's belt. I think that's what stops us from leaving the planet, you know, in human form. And yeah, I think that the moon landing is a big psyops. I actually am very skeptical about the moon landers as well, the whole, the moon rovers. Not the moon rovers, the Mars rover. Pretty skeptical about that as well. I mean, I just don't understand how this thing hasn't got bogged, and, you know, how it just managed to, you know, land and it perfectly works and there's no glitches. And I mean, we know with technology how it glitches out all the time. And yet, here we have this thing on Mars. It's been bombarded by radiation. I mean, Mars doesn't have an atmosphere. There's no protection from geomagnetic storms, you know. But yeah, there's no problems with these, you know, the Mars rover for, you know, 10 years, whatever. Yeah, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Dee, I was a student of yours many years ago. I was wrong about warning with the agenda they are pushing. I didn't think it would happen, but it did. I apologise. That's okay. Apology accepted. And, you know, I don't hold any grudges against people. I want anybody to know that. When I remove somebody or delete somebody, it's not that I'm doing it personally. Well, if you've attacked me personally and called me names, and I probably did take it personally at the time, but I don't really remember, I don't put that name. I mean, there are a few people that have gone out of their way to make videos about me and attack me on that level, even to the point where they were sending out, or themselves, they were pretending to be other people to try and fool me into believing that they were someone that they weren't, into infiltrating my inner circle. I had someone that was, somebody was stalking me, like constantly, sending me messages. You can't send messages to each other on YouTube like you used to be able to. They'd send me weird symbols. They'd pretend to be somebody and message me from, for a long time. And we would engage in all these discussions, and then suddenly they'd do the symbol to show me that they were actually this other person that had been stalking me. So it was a little bit creepy, and it was a little bit evil. Probably a lot evil. And this person is still actually around YouTube and does have quite a large following, because he just spews absolute bullshit and lies to people. So there are a few that I will remember. I will never forget those people who made an active, like they didn't just argue with me and call me a name or whatever, like, oh, you're ignorant, whatever, and just cancel me out or whatever. And then I deleted them, and that was the last I ever heard of them. They actively went around attacking me, dragging my name through the mud, making videos about me, doing posts about me, commenting about me on various different videos, like literally tried to make my life, they went out of their way to make my life miserable, and to bring me into disrepute, to discredit me, and to drag my name through the mud. And so they probably, I could count them on one hand. I will never forgive those people, or I will never forget those people. But some of you guys that I just had a fallout with, and I just, disagreed. We had a disagreement, and I deleted you, blocked you, whatever. Please don't think that I harbor any grudges towards you. I don't. I have done this myself, okay? So I remember when I was into Buddhism, and somebody who was, I was on forums back then, because we had forums back then, we didn't really have social media. It was just forums. And I made a couple of good friendships on these forums, and, and me and this other girl, we were friends, and we were researching into different things at the time. It wasn't any of this information. I wasn't into the scriptures or anything like that back then. But I was into Buddhism, and she started telling me that the Buddhists were evil, and that they were, doing some pretty evil stuff. And she even gave me some pictures of the evil stuff that they were doing, and I just would not believe her. I called her all the, I'm not, you're a liar, this and this and that, and I just deleted her and the whole thing. So, I haven't always got it right too. And back in the beginning stages, when people were commenting to me about religious scriptures and stuff like that, I would just dismiss them out of hand, as a religitard. So, look, the whole purpose of being a seeker of truth is that it's the knowledge that comes first and foremost. It's the knowledge, it's the truth, it's finding the truth. So if we have our fallouts along the way, and there have been many, and there is a particular researcher and myself, and I'm sure many of you know who I'm talking about, and we had a fallout, and I wish, that things had been different, and, that we could actually, see things through the lens of just looking for the knowledge and not bringing our personal feelings into it. But unfortunately, we are just all on a learning curve here. And so that's what happens, okay? And we fall out with each other, and we say things that we don't mean, and we do things that we don't mean, because we're just learning, okay? And we're just trying to do the best we can with what we've got. And back in those times, we weren't as wise as we thought we were, okay? So I'll put it there. So that's okay. Apology accepted. That's okay. And I'm glad that you've, you know, started to see that everything that I was warning about in regards to their agenda, it's starting to play out. And I know a lot of people didn't want to listen because it wasn't very pretty. Okay, the picture I was giving wasn't a pretty picture, and so a lot of people just don't want to accept it. But unfortunately, it is what it is. Yeah, and I've actually said that, Aussie Gold. So when you actually look at the scriptures, and particularly, you know, when you're looking at the Bible, I use Bible Hub. And actually that researcher that I was just talking about actually, you know, was the one that gave me a heads up about Bible Hub. And I like it because it gives you all the different interpretations of the different verses, each verse. And I think there's about 20 different interpretations. You get the King James version, you get the Aramaic version, you get the New Testament, you get all the different ones. And so you can kind of, even though it's still not actually taking the translations directly from the text as they were, which is what we really want, okay, to be as close to the original text as we can. And I don't think we're ever going to do that, guys, even if we go back to the Hebrew and, you know, we look at it in that way, because they were already manipulating the text way before. I mean, I'm talking like when they were starting to consolidate their power 1700 years ago, they were already making the changes then. So we don't have any original texts. Okay, there are no gospels in their original form other than the Nag Hammadi gospels. Okay, the gospels in the Bible, none of them exist now. So yeah, look, I like Hebrew because I like the symbols of the Hebrew alphabet, because they are relating a lot more knowledge than just the words. Okay, the symbols and the meanings of the symbols relate a lot of knowledge, and it does tie into the Kabbalah tree of life and Kabbalah, and I really do love Kabbalah too. So yeah, that is it's good. So yeah, go onto Bible Hub if you're interested in looking at the scriptures and all of the different interpretations, and that is definitely something that I would recommend. In a place where if there was a dome or not seen with your own eye, they will lie. Okay. I'm not sure if that's flat earth or not, but I do not, flat earth is just a psyop, so I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Anybody who wants to have even the smallest degree in understanding these texts and this knowledge, you have to actually, you know, stop being played by these psyops. Sometimes when people will interject on the chat with these types of, you know, things about flat earth and that, it's because they're shilling. So I don't know, but I don't know if you're talking, when I normally see dome and things like that, it makes me think that somebody's flat earthing. Okay, so flat earth is just a psyops. There's nothing. I mean, if you understand hermetics, and if you don't understand hermetics or haven't even looked at hermetics, I don't even know why you're here. But if you look at the law of correspondence, then that just blows flat earth out of the water, because the law of correspondence, if we look to every other celestial object around us, they're all orbs. They're all certain, you know, they're all spheres. So why would we just be the only one that wasn't a sphere when everything else around us is a sphere? And we know that as a matter of fact, because we can look through a telescope, and I have literally got a telescope and I can see Saturn. I can see the moon. We can see the moon without a telescope, and we know it's round. But I can see all the planets, and they're all round. So I don't understand, if you look into hermetics and understand hermetic science, how you can be fooled by that psyops. It's very easy to dispel just using the law of correspondence. I think that's okay, Haywire 5. My pleasure to help you guys in any way I can. You know, I have a love of knowledge, and I really do love the feeling of knowing others get this knowledge like I do. It's like I don't feel so lonely. Like when other people are on this path with me, because it is the hermit's path, and I know there's only a few of you, and I know even fewer of you actually comment on the videos or in the chat. And I know that you understand this knowledge to the level that you do. And I do thank some of you for commenting over the last couple of videos, because, you know, I was actually questioning, why do I even do this when I know that, you know, I don't benefit it. But I do actually benefit in the way that I know I'm not alone. Okay, so yes, I do actually, it does make me feel great knowing that others get this knowledge to the same level as I do. Even if you are in the few, we are walking the hermit's path together. We are not alone. Even if we are all over the world, we're scattered to the four ends of the earth, we are not alone. And that is another reason I did the live stream, is that I wanted to reinforce the fact that we aren't alone, guys. And sometimes we just need to listen and be more present, you know. And that's why I thought it was good that, well, I could just keep relaying all of this knowledge in the way I like to, just, you know, off the top of my head and with my notes. But we can also know that there are just that we may be in the few, but there are others like us that are walking this path. Yes, Truth Seeker, it was an amazing connection that Danny Wilton made with the Cathedral Art and the Orion Nebula. He was on point. And we know that because it just keeps being confirmed. And there is even knowledge and mythology and information that we weren't aware of back in 2012 and 2011 that I'm finding now that continues to confirm his discoveries. And I do just want to again reiterate that Danny Wilton helped me with the Gnostic Gospels. He was the one that actually showed me the Gospel of Thomas and the Nag Hammadi Gospels. He was the one who introduced me to Hermetics and the Kabbalion. He was the one that actually put the golden mean ratio over the ancient Egyptian artifact, so that I could see all of the codes that were in that artifact, that helped me do the Mystery Teachings of Ancient Egypt series, and helped me understand and unlock all of the codes from the Kabbalah Tree of Life and all of the different mythologies and what they were relating to. And so he played a very, very important part in my discovering of all of this knowledge as well. And so, yeah, we do have to give credit where credit's due. Each of us have our own path to follow, and I respect that he has gone on his own path. He has to do what he feels is right for him, just as we all have to do what we feel is right for us. But I will actually, you know, give credit where credit is due. All right, so, well, I am actually going to leave it here for now. We've gone just on 2 hours 26, so almost at 2.5 hours. Thank you all, guys, and I do appreciate your kind words. Yeah, I do appreciate you guys, I really do. So it's great to see some old faces that have been around since the beginning, and it's great to see new faces too, because we all have, you know, our own time where we find these truths, and some of us are a little late. So you don't have much time, guys. You need to get cracking and start researching and studying if you're only just finding this knowledge now. But there have been some of us that have been around for a very, very long time, and I'm glad that you guys are still here. As always, guys, have a great week. And as I said, I'm probably going to do a live stream about this crowning of the false messiah on this coming Saturday. There is some more information I want to put out about that. So that may be tomorrow night or through the week sometime. I'll try and get that video, that live stream out. So even if you guys don't catch that live stream, it won't be a morning one. You'll still be able to see the video anyway. So just keep checking for that. Well, as always, have a great week, guys, and peace out.